Hey everyone, it's Luke Frye, Washington CPA and co-founder of Timber Tax. And it takes everything inside of me not to say, hey, cool cats and kittens, but I won't, I promise. So I'm going to give us a moment. I know some people have had a little bit of trouble getting logged in, so I'm going to just take a moment to make sure that we're all logged in. So that way, if you're here, you can join us. Let's see. Awesome. So if you're joining right now, please feel free to post any questions as we go, and I'll try to get to them. And if I don't get them answered, then I'll make sure that we follow up with you. And really what I want to talk about today is an extension of what we've been talking about for the last month or so. And that really is the Payroll Protection Program, COVID relief from the IRS. If you haven't already received your stimulus check directly from the IRS, that's going to be separate. Hi, Sandy. Thanks for joining us. So your stimulus check, if you were eligible, should have been deposited. If not, there are links on the IRS. You can go directly to the IRS website, and there's a coronavirus section. When you get there, what you're going to see is a place to get your payment. And if you haven't filed your return yet, you can enter your info. And if you have filed your return, but you don't have banking info or need to update it, there's also that option. That website is updated once every day. And the way mine worked was actually that I updated it by a Tuesday, and then I got updated the following Saturday, and then got the money the following Wednesday, I think is what it was. So it's not lightning fast. And unfortunately, as with any of these like Washington unemployment folks, we're kind of in a stuck situation where if you haven't gotten through to somebody, you have to call, and a lot of agencies aren't taking calls. So today I want to transfer over, and we're going to talk more about how to make sure your payroll protection program loan is forgiven. So what we know is that for sole proprietors, there are some specific rules that are slightly different. And that means you probably won't have to prove any sort of payroll records, and you probably won't be eligible for even the rent or the utilities expenses. So I'll go ahead and post, at least on Facebook, this article about, the frequently asked questions. That are pretty useful. And then there's also there's frequently asked questions, and then just rules around what's eligible. So what that means is we've received a number of updates from people who qualified for the payroll protection program loan and received money, but they used a Schedule C that they prepared themselves. If you did that and you know it's wrong, so common mistakes we had seen were you put contractors as employees, or you maybe use your total owner draw instead of your net profit. When you are a self-employed person, your net income is considered your payroll, okay? And if you have an S corporation, the net income that we're thinking about actually is your W-2. So it is a little bit different. So right now, I'm going to spend some time talking through just some issues we have with people who've qualified for loans in excess of what they should have. So what's going to end up happening is, now that you have the money, in 8 weeks, you're going to have to apply to have as much of it forgiven as you can. And the intent was to keep people employed. So if you fired anybody or furloughed them, I guess is the more appropriate word, you're going to want to hire them back and then pay them. But if we're just talking about you as an individual, and you received money and it was in excess of what you should have because you had an erroneous Schedule C, we're recommending that you give that money back, okay? Because if a professional, a CPA like I, were to have submitted that information, that would be considered fraud. Because you're not a CPA, it's considered an honest mistake. And the Treasury has created, the original due date was today to give the money back. So this would be if you filled out your own loan application form and you know that you've gotten more than you should have. So if you have no employees and you made $100,000 or more last year, the maximum you should have gotten was about $20,000. And then 2 months of that, or 50 seconds, so 8 weeks out of the 52 of a year, should automatically just be forgiven if you're a sole proprietor. That means if you have something that you were thinking about doing, like hiring people or adding on anything, it's not going to be as real-time updated as far as what we know right now for someone who's just a single member LLC or a sole proprietor. It's just going to be 2019 net income times 850 seconds, and that's going to be automatically forgiven. So the biggest thing you want to do is in your bookkeeping, when you receive that money, that deposit should be booked to a loan account, okay? That means it will show up on your balance sheet as a liability. And then what we do is we very closely track everything that you spend that on. And we want to go ahead and when you receive that money, pay yourself out, half of the money in May and then half of the money in June. And then once we get the loan forgiven, we're going to write that off, which we can talk about later. But essentially, the money should be showing up as a loan until it's forgiven. Something else to remember is that you're not going to be able to deduct any of the expenses. So rather than counting that loan as income, you're just not going to be able to deduct those expenses on your 2020 tax return. So looking forward to the 2020 tax returns that we're going to file next year in 2021, there are going to be a lot of adjustments that we're going to work on making for you. So your 2020 tax return will be a lot more involved, a lot more adjustments. We're going to have to look into things. So it's really important to make sure that you're on your bookkeeping right now. The more up to date your books are, the better. If your books aren't up to date through April, try and get that done. And then especially when you receive that payroll protection program loan, make sure that you are also tracking where you're spending your money. If you have employees who've been furloughed, try and get them back on right away. It's okay to get new employees if they were furloughed and you want to find other employees to replace them. The key is that you just have to use 75% of the loan proceeds for payroll. That's just a requirement for even getting the loan. Because remember, it's the payroll protection program. And remember that payroll, when you're a sole proprietor or single member LLC, is really just your net income. So if you have other questions, we're going to be actively reaching out to everybody we know who has received money to help you dial in your forgiveness portion. The key is just keep up with your bookkeeping and use at least 75% of the proceeds for payroll. If you got approved for more than you should have, because you counted people like independent contractors as employees, or because you used a draft Schedule C that was incorrect, then you'll want to actually return that money. So you'll want to pay it back by May 14th. And we'll make sure that there is an article posted with some more information on that. Otherwise, if you have questions about the Payroll Protection Program loan, please comment them here and we'll happily get back to you as we can. So thanks so much.